Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and I'm fresh off the power outage. Come home to my computer being blown up, and hopefully, I have an operable system.
Well, I hope so. And hopefully my power doesn't go out too. It is very windy in Rochester right now. It's like 60 mile
Yeah,
an hour wind.
that
So
could be awkward. We can't really do anything about that if in the middle of the show things kind of get
yeah, if
sideways.
that happens, guys, I'm sorry. And
Yeah,
also, have to apologize to Bob at YSL because there's just no more time to record a show.
yeah, well,
Um,
an evergreen show or something. I
exactly.
A nightmare, Kevin, just getting set up tonight. An absolute nightmare. It was like I put my new modem in, and for some reason, I had to contact Spectrum to get their permission to use my new modem. And I
Yeah.
out when stuff like that happens. I'm like old dude, crotchety about like technology, and I mean I'm more advanced than a lot of people, but still, I'm like my poor wife has to listen to me rant and rave when I lose my mind over this stuff. Took like 2 hours to get things working, but here we are.
Dang. Struggling. All right. What's all right? We're here. We're streaming. We're going to do a show today, folks. So we got a few different topics. Mitch McConnell being, well, not really out, but just stepping down as speaker.
Yeah.
And as one of Congress's spending bills getting labeled as unconstitutional, ban on IVF, Wendy's price surge.
Yeah. Wendy's surge pricing, man.
Yeah.
I I'm gonna launch right into a personal story though. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I'm gonna be like, I'll save it for the show, but
Save for a
I
show.
fight.
We'll talk about Wendy's surge pricing and how our government is definitely going to help this situation. Elizabeth Warren is on it, Tim. Don't you worry. She is here to help.
Thank goodness. You know what she could do to make fast food prices cheaper is help grant exemptions to the minimum wage law.
Oh, yeah.
There's
If only there
foreshadowing.
were an innovative governor who
Yeah.
had such interesting policies.
Yeah, the new modem I got is I don't know, the TRX 75,000 BTU. It heats my house. Mine's Bitcoin. It's something, Alice. I don't know. It's just a beast. It's a beast. That's probably why they wanted it. They had to register it. It's like no unregistered modems allowed.
Yeah. Well, with that type of power, I mean, that's just common sense regulation there.
Yeah, it's just common
Got to
sense.
do it. All right,
Yeah.
let's go in. We'll do the show. We'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor. Oh no, Tim, did you freeze up on me?
Is that us or was that me? Are we?
It's all right. You know what?
Falling apart, Kevin.
It's all right. Like you look like you're really animated in
All right.
in starting the show, so it's all good, Tim. It's gonna get picked up in the recording. We'll fix it in post. That's
Okay.
what I do.
Post production.
That's right.
Hey, Kevin. So look, I know we've got some hot topics, but I just want to give a shout out to the government of New York State for running an amazing and excellent event this past weekend. The New York State FAFSA Public High School Association ran a wrestling tournament in Albany, New York. And my kid, TJ, took fourth in Division II at 152 pounds. And I've got to be honest, I loved the tournament. They did a great job. They honored a lot of cool people. And so here I am, once again, simping for the government, man. But they did do a good job with it.
I don't know, Tim. I'm starting to sense a pattern.
Yeah, I'm proud of my kid, and so that's really what I'm bragging about. There's
No,
great stories from all over
congratulations,
the state. So they did a wonderful job.
Yeah, that's awesome. That must be very proud of your son. 4th place is a big deal. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a group of so look, 30,000 wrestlers, 30,000 kids wrestle in New York State. The top 500 make it to this tournament. Half of those are split between Division 1 and Division 2, and my kid placed in the top 4 in his weight class in Division 2. It's a real positive event. And a shout out to the kids that placed higher than him. A shout out to the kids that wrestle because it's a gutsy, gritty sport. A shout out to kids all over the state that made it their goal to put on the trophy, win the trophy, get the big medal. It just, and I'm sad that it's done. Like, it may not be done, but it's kind of done. His high school career is over. So, anyways, shout out to New York State. Shout out to wrestlers. It was awesome.
Yeah. Again, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as awesome as New York State is,
Yeah.
at least the sports organizations, we do have some government officials to talk about that maybe you have a lower opinion of. Should we start with our guy Mitch McConnell?
The ultimate hero of the GOP, the leader, the man, the myth, the legend, Mitch McConnell. Guys, he is, unfortunately, I think due to age and the rapidly changing nature of the Republican Party, is going to step down from his leadership position, Kevin. I think I want to say it like this, and I mean it completely as a joke. I think the conservatives have won this round.
I suppose so. I don't know. I think it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory for conservatives. Just like from is Mitch McConnell a good political operator point of view? He kind of is a good political operator. Like he was good at what he does. There's a reason why he was one of the longest serving Senate leaders, because he was good at what he does for the party. Now, is that a good thing for conservative principles, for libertarian principles, the constitutional governance? Well, no, not necessarily.
No, it's not. Look, Mitch McConnell is the face of the GOP to me. He is just as corrupt as every Democrat that conservatives complain about, and they're willing to give this guy pass after pass after pass. He makes deal after deal that benefits him, benefits his cronies. He's a guy that fundraises overseas. Like, he's that guy, and conservatives probably do feel like they won this round, but the guy that they replace him with is going to be the same. Maybe even worse.
Again, like the type of person who gets that role is a good party operator. Like, his job is to go and fundraise and try to preserve or gain back the majority in the Senate. And he was like fairly good at that. That's why people liked him. I mean, now whether he was good at that and then was like using his power to twist arms and buy loyalty, okay, that's whether or not that's an inherent part of the job or something he was good at. I don't know.
Can I jump in on that? Because part of the job, right, is, according to the GOP, is winning elections. But if we're not changing the future, if we're not pushing the dime towards liberty, or at least a limited government, then what the only job that they have is growing the government slightly slower than the Democrats. And honestly, I'm not sure that they do that.
Yeah, not if we look at like the previous presidency, I don't think that they were doing anything about shrinking the size of government. Not at all.
Yeah, the other conservative hero, right?
But remember that's not the job description. The job description isn't implement common sense political reforms, fiscal reforms, constitutional governments. That's not the job. The job is win elections for Republicans and maintain your majority in the Senate. Like, that's, I mean, like, again, and that it shouldn't be. The job should be to like effectively govern that side of Congress and to ensure meaningful debates on legislation, treaties, etc. for the deliberative part of Congress. But instead, we had kind of a cynical political operator who was concerned with, for better or worse, protecting his party and doing things like making sure that they had a lot of say in who got appointed judges and Supreme Court justices too. Because, again, I know Democrats hate this, but we think about how Obama wanted to nominate Merrick Garland and get him on the Supreme Court, who would have been terrible. Like, honestly, like just a horrendous pick from Obama, like his worst pick by far. I'm glad McConnell like took a active role in blocking it and being like, oh no, we can't do this until the election.
Yeah, look, so
Cynical,
okay.
but it was the right move. Like that guy stunk.
Yeah, no, there is the occasional like silver lining to every cloud. Like we have a couple of decent Supreme Court justices. One of them, wasn't Gorsuch the guy that eventually got appointed after him?
It was that he was
So
the guy who
that's
came
a
in next, Gorsuch.
yeah, that's a big win. That's one of the biggest wins of all time, really.
Few silver linings of the Trump presidency.
Yeah, there you go. They're there, Kevin. They are there.
Yeah.
So that's an area where I'll give some props to Mitch McConnell, but like, you know,
I mean,
like you've made the point very adequately that he is just a political operative whose goal is to win elections. There's not a lot of principle behind that position, and to win elections, you have to raise money. Where does that money come from? Arguably, I'd say selling regulations and propping up the MIC with a circular toilet bowl of spending, where we're just flushing it down the toilet. That's
however he's got to get it done. Scratch a couple backs, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, no, he's not being kicked out. He's not being forced out like in the way that like the previous House Speaker was, Kevin McCarthy. It's that he basically gave a speech today and is like, well, Father Time remains undefeated. Just it's time for me to step down and let a new generation step up. So he's done in that regard, but he's serving out the rest of his term, even though he's had some like notable public health problems with like freezing up and not saying anything out in public. Some odd moments there.
That's true. That is true. It's happened, man. And look, that can happen to anybody. I can be very sympathetic to that. I've had stage fright right on the radio show, where things just get caught up in your brain. But what it looks like is that
that was
like the geriatric squad has a monopoly on power in this country, and I think at the very least, him stepping down is good.
I think so.
Hopefully,
we'll see.
Arguably, I'm
he's
glad
the devil,
down.
right? And I know I've been trying to like dig for things like but what about like this thing? I'm like, I don't particularly like the guy's policies at all. Just trying to give some back and forth here.
Yeah, he's the face of the GOP, and that to me is one of the many reasons why I ended up as a libertarian is that the promise of smaller government, the promise of fiscal responsibility, the promise of rights and responsibilities has never actually been delivered upon. And so libertarianism goes a little like one step further in that direction. And I like it. I like where I reside mentally. It was always a challenge because I was a liberal when I was young. You kind of morph into a conservative, and then you realize that the GOP is not an answer to conservatism. And then you realize sometimes conservatism goes too far. Like, I don't want to force religious views on people. I have no interest in that. I want a smaller government. I want less wars, and I think conservatives have lost that narrative, so that's me. I'm sorry, guys. I still love you. I hear a lot of things that you say that make sense to me, but here I am saying Mitch McConnell was never your friend anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of conservatives who felt that way for a while too.
Sure.
I said he's a guy who's concerned with the public image of the party, regardless of like where the principles should have been, and including on things like spending bills, right? Like he knows that like it is politically perilous to try to hold up the functioning of government to extract actual principles and fiscal reforms and spending controls out of doing the business of Congress, and he wouldn't do it. He would fold when the opportunities came many times.
Well, yeah, and good news on that note, Kevin. Congress just narrowly avoided a limited shutdown yet again. Bipartisanly, they came to an agreement. So it's just for now.
All right. So is it another continuing resolution?
Yeah.
Is that what we got?
Yeah, that's what we got. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they strike a deal, and who knows what it even means, right? Like they're just going to keep spending money like drunken sailors. That's what it means.
Well, just
it's a great agreement. Another great agreement for the American people, right?
I'm sure it's great. I have not read what is in this continuing resolution and what bizarre stuff exists in this because there's always something. Somehow
Oh, I
it's
can't
always a
wait to
thing.
yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. Like that's an area where like a guy like Rand Paul does a really nice job of taking advantage of the frivolous spending that gets wadded into these agreements and making popular noise out of it. Populist noise of saying, "Hey, we're like funding a chicken study. Like, do we really need to know how chickens react to methamphetamine? Like, we can all presume it's bad and not good for them. Like, can't we just leave it alone? Do we have to send $1 million to some agency in Ukraine to study meth-induced chickens? Like, do we have to do that? That's the question.
I don't know.
The
How
answer
could
is,
we not do that? Like, I think that is
I,
an important goal of science, Tim. And if
well,
we don't get methed up chickens, like,
I
I
mean,
don't know,
look,
we won't know what sort of medical benefits that provides. Putting
I
chickens
do
on
get,
meth. It's
yeah, I do get being curious about it. Like, and I think that there might be the possibility of some private enterprise funding that on their own without some sort of
yeah.
$1 million study
There's
from the
definitely
government.
someone in the back country who has already attempted this.
Yeah. So,
Just ask them to start documenting their data a bit more effectively. Like,
yeah, that's it.
no, please don't give any meth to chickens on your own. I'm talking to both the government and the folks who may have both of those supplies at home. You probably shouldn't do that. It's not nice to the chickens.
Yeah, correct. They should have,
Uh,
yeah, free will and all that. Chickens can't consent to eating meth, so
That's
there's no reason to do
that's right.
it.
Just the all around unpleasant experience for the chickens. I'm sure. Maybe I don't know. But we don't know until we study it. That's the point.
Yeah, we don't know.
Um,
That's why science exists, Kevin, to answer those big questions. Let's be honest.
that's right. I know. Yeah. No, that the Rand Paul's like Festivus stuff is great. It's full of all sorts of weird stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
like reading that list every year.
yeah. And guys, if you haven't checked any of it out, you should check it out. It's readily available all over the interweb. Um, but he does a nice job finding frivolous government spending, and Mitch McConnell does a nice job of making sure agreements get made that we can continue frivolous government spending. So there
Right
you have
on.
it. Yeah.
Oh, Mitch, what will we do without you? Uh, so speaking of government spending, I know you want to talk about there's part of a government spending bill that got ruled unconstitutional. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think real quick because I didn't get to dive too deep in it, but there was a ruling in the by a federal judge. The $1.7 trillion spending bill passed by Congress in 2022 is unconstitutional. Now, the question in my mind, of course, rapidly becomes, well, what does that even mean? The money's already spent. What are they going to do about
Yeah.
it? Who's going to be held accountable? And Kevin, I'm going to predict the answer is literally no one. Like, there's no
No,
way to
it's not
hold
going to
them
matter at all.
unconstitutional. No.
No, it's not going to matter.
Excuse me.
I mean, what's interesting about this case is like, so what it was is there's the attorney general in Texas, Ken Paxton, was trying to challenge the constitutionality of a specific provision in the bill that would have and this is I think it's a Fox News article, would have given like more rights and protections for pregnant workers from a federal perspective, and they challenged it on the basis that the members of the House voting by proxy wasn't constitutional, which I don't know. I never had that much of a problem with people voting by proxy. Like it never bothered me. I know like it really upset some people, but like to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Congress has now joined like the workforce like the rest of us have and have done some stuff by video. Like good for them. Like understanding what that
I
looks
think
like and what everyone else is going through in 2020 and 2021.
Well, I do think people get caught up in the honorifics of government, right? So the fact that they're them showing up and doing their job and doing voting on behalf of their constituents is arguably an act that could be controversial, could be troublesome to them, could limit access to their family and friends, and probably people feel like they owe us that on some level. I'm more along the lines with you. They're going to make all sorts of bad decisions, whether they vote in person or whether they vote by phone or by mail or by whatever. Um, and they're still not dealing with the real issues that need to be dealt with, right? Like they need to deal with the spending, and they're not, and they need to deliberate over laws on the floor instead of just passing them through as part of spending bills. So they're
So
not
like
doing it
that
anyway.
point's like kind of good actually, because like what they should be doing, as you said, is they should be on the floor, they should be talking to folks, they should be having floor amendments, having debates.
Right.
Like that should take place, because what happens now is, well, they're not proxy voting, but like they might as well be. It might as well be just a, hey, the majority whip is saying to vote yes on this bill. It's an omnibus bill. It's 40,000 pages long, and you will not get to read it. Just vote yes. Oh,
Just
okay.
vote
So show
yes.
up and vote yes. Okay. What's the difference there between that and proxy voting? I don't know. But if they're actually debating like real spending bills and not just continuing resolutions, and discussing those on the floor and offering amendments and having to be there in person to vote on the amendments to those bills to decide whether or not, like, a specific thing to fund, the study of methamphetamine on chickens is like worth the government expense. If someone wants to put up an amendment to fund that, like, you should have to go on record, yes or no, on the chicken meth funding.
I agree. They should have to do some work, right? They should have to actually represent. They should actually have to give due deliberation to a lot of these issues, and they don't. They simply don't. They come up with big, huge spending bills like the $95 billion for the Ukraine and Israel that barely got debated, the Super Bowl Sunday war bill, like the war funding bill. Like, and that was after the House had kind of rejected the one before that. It's like, do your jobs, argue these things on the floor. At least then we know where you stand. And man, will it make for some great sound bites, because those jokers will say incredibly stupid stuff, and people will realize that we're being led by idiots. It will be epic, Kevin.
Yeah. Would be. Let me sneak in a couple comments before we have to go to break. Alice on YouTube says the bills they vote on are not even read by the people voting for them. Nope, they're
No,
not.
they're
There's no way.
definitely
There's no
not.
way they could read them. Get
Nope.
them an hour or two before they have to vote, and they're thousands of pages. Ridiculous. Patricia has an interesting comment. I have no idea if this is true. I'm going to research this, but Patricia says, I think voting by proxy is more constitutional, and founding fathers did it when necessary. Interesting. I'll have to look that up. I have no idea if that's true offhand, but I'm gonna look into that, because
Yeah.
it'd be interesting if they did that. It would make sense. Someone's
There's
out in business, you gotta, and there's only a couple bills a year.
Yeah, I mean, there's been
Otherwise, somebody
locally, there's been allegations of proxy voting by people who didn't even know that they were eligible to vote in certain political party structures. They had served on a board at some point. They had a vote. Their vote was captured by, let's say, the chairperson of the committee, and on their behalf, he cast the votes they
has to
wanted.
vote on their behalf. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
not the votes they wanted, the votes.
the votes.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
On that note, though, we do need to hit the break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Oh, see, here's
Interesting
an interesting
idea.
one. Dark Clouds of the Mind on YouTube says they could have Chat GPT analyze the bill in a matter of seconds, and then it could tell them how to vote. We just got to
Well,
embrace our robot overlords, Tim.
I mean, I'm there. You know what I mean? Like, look at me. I'm kind of connecting to the internet ever more directly.
But like, actually having AI services summarize bills isn't like a terrible idea.
No,
It's
I
just
like
that
that idea.
there's still like so many like different line items in there. Like and I don't know if you've used Chat GPT much, but like how you ask it to frame the response that you're looking for can lead to a bunch of variations in answers. So if you ask for, hey, give me a 2-paragraph summary of this 5,000 word omnibus bill, it's going to give you one answer. And then if you say, hey, give me a 1-sentence summary of every spending item contained within that bill, it's going to give you another. And my worry is that the analysis be like, how would my party vote?
Yeah.
on this bill, right?
Right.
Which actually would be another interesting reform. Like, can we just like sequester each set of senators and House members and their legislative staffs and just say, okay, you have to like vote on this, and then like you have to figure out independently whether or not like this is a bill you want to vote on. You don't get to
Right.
talk to anyone else. You just gotta decide on your own. How would that change the results?
Yeah. I mean, I would be asking ChatGPT, is this really an Inflation Reduction Act? And like I only need one word answer but I already know the answer. You see what I mean? Like I'd be out
No.
ahead of it.
Oh no. I mean, and if you ask Google Gemini, then it's gonna, give you like, well, it's complicated, and we have to consider all the problematic aspects of this bill and the
Nope,
ways
we
that
don't.
no.
Nope, I don't agree. But yeah, I have fought with ChatGPT, and I found it to be just an extended version of a data accumulator that you could find all the information yourself. Like what it does do is like rapidly accumulate certain styles of information, but when you ask it to write like you know libertarian slogans, it's like it doesn't really do a good job. There's
So yeah.
nothing that we haven't already
Well,
tried.
it doesn't know. It's just trying to predict what like it thinks you want it to say.
Yeah.
So that's all it's trying to do. And it can be
It's just trying to please me. I like that, though.
it's
That
kind of
sounds
it's
good.
kind of it, but it's basing it off of whatever information is out there, and so they're looking at everything associated with libertarianism and then saying what words are supposed to come next. I beat you to the punch by like a second on the
Yeah,
Google Gemini
alright.
joke.
Well, good thing we're not on the radio show. Yeah.
All right.
Alright,
Speaking
so
of the
look,
radio show, we should go back to it.
my computer is taking over me. Alright.
It's
Am I
taking
here?
over you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're here. I can hear you. Can you still hear me?
My computer just did something weird. I thought you lost me. Yeah, I can hear you. It's all good. I
No.
fixed it.
Good.
I was at a
Right,
point
yeah.
where I was gonna smash all of my computer items into the ground today, but I've recovered.
Right. It heard you talking smack about ChatGPT, and your computer's like, it's that's one of our boys. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
the stand up
Edge
for the
wanted
crew.
to step up and Edge wanted to step up and interrupt everything. Okay,
Oh
thanks.
goodness, are you using Microsoft Edge? Is that
Not really,
that
but I
why?
haven't I haven't erased all the demons of it. Like they're still
Tim,
there.
there's your problem, man. You use Chrome. Just
Well,
it's better.
I think I'm technically on Chrome, but Edge is still in the computer, wanting to achieve supremacy. There's a war going on between Google and Edge. You know what I mean?
That's
Right
fair.
in this little tiny computer. It's weird. And
All
I'm the
right.
one that loses. Collateral damage.
It's true. But let's go back. We'll go back in about 10 seconds. Maybe we'll talk about the IVF ban thing
Yeah, let's talk
next.
about that.
We'll talk about that because it's been a big news
wild.
item. Go back in 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm still here, Kevin. I mean, I don't even know where I could go. I live for Tuesday nights, or well, it's actually Wednesday night. But I love doing our show, man. I love it, and I love the comments. I love the thoughtfulness. I love the people of WYSL that are checking us out. We're going to talk about something pretty controversial, right?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about there was a ruling that came out of Alabama that effectively bans IVF. So it's in vitro fertilization. And
so I got the backstory on how this ban on in vitro fertilization came about. Basically, what I'll say, my interpretation is a patient who was having a breakdown got into an infertility clinic and damaged some embryos, some frozen embryos. The embryos, the parents of the embryos, or the people who own the embryos, depending on your position there, were very upset and sued the hospital for a wrongful death. Like they wanted to cash out on this, which maybe isn't fair. Maybe they were legitimately upset. I know that in vitro fertilization can be, you've already gone through trying to have a baby. It can be a very emotional and challenging thing. So
yeah, it's emotionally challenging. It's expensive. It's
yeah, it really is. And it's like, a great like exhibition of the desire to have children, right? You're very dedicated to that notion. So
Yeah.
they felt like they really lost something. So they sued the hospital for a wrongful death. And guess what? They lost that first. Like it was basically dismissed that frozen embryos do not meet the definition of a human being. But in Alabama, they appealed and it came back around. And the judge said that I'm trying to find his exact quote. But all right, so even if I can't find it, he's like, no, they're babies, and this is, these are unborn children. And can you imagine the chilling effect that is going to have on the in vitro fertilization thing, where people are literally willing to trade everything to have a child? And
Yeah.
if you mishandle a frozen embryo, you can be, wrongfully sued for a wrongful death. I think there's lots of implications there.
Yeah, because that's basically what it is. Like, okay, well, the judge's interpretation of the Alabama law was, okay, how they've presented it, this is a human life, and whether or not, embryos were destroyed on purpose or on accident, that is a thing that is against the law. So if you're a clinic, what happens with a lot of these, fertilized embryos is a lot of them end up being discarded after they're done, or there's successful, implantation of the embryo, and that would be murder under this interpretation of the law, right? Which,
Correct.
they even some of the folks in that area are like, this kind of goes too far. This wasn't really what we meant. And so a lot of like IVF clinics in that state are like, we now have to no longer offer our services. And again, there's some people who might be in the middle of that treatment, which again is expensive and taxing on the body, and taxing emotionally,
Sure.
for many people. And, that's it's cut off because a judge perhaps even correctly interpreted the law, but the law was written in a way to, ban this service that helps people start their families. It's an anti-family ruling. It's an anti-family law, the way it's written.
Yeah.
And
So one of the reasons why it's making big news, Kevin, is that there are a number of bills out there now in place in Alabama where they're trying to gin up support for them that would protect in vitro fertilization as a way forward for families to, have children. So the issue is, one of the issues that I see is that it's a tangential issue to abortion, right? And that it does re-raise all of the questions that abortion arises out of the abortion debate. I'm sorry that I'm stumbling over my words, guys, but this subject's a little bit tricky for me, because I'm always conflicted when we start talking about abortion and when does life, begin, and how all of this stuff comes together. And that's where the real controversy begins. Like, is an embryo, a frozen embryo, is that a human life? This judge in Alabama, according to the law, said yes. So
yeah,
all of the bills now on the floor that are trying to protect in vitro fertilization have to kind of line up with the notion that a frozen embryo is not a baby. And so it basically coincides with the abortion debate, Kevin. And I think
yeah, no,
that's
I mean,
one
it
of the
kind of
reasons why
does,
it's
right?
making a lot of news right now.
If your view is that life begins at conception, then taken literally, then those are all human lives and need to be protected. That's not how most people view it, particularly in this treatment. But if you're taking that to a point of logical consistency, then that's what you have to do. That's what you have to say. And as I think that eventually a law will get passed where they're going to protect IVF in Alabama and probably most other states that have enacted these really strict abortion bans. They're going to make sure they clarify the law to say like what it is. And Donald Trump even got on board. He said, we want to make it easier for mothers and fathers to have babies, not harder. That includes supporting the availability of fertility treatments like IVF in every state in America.
Yeah,
Donald
certainly.
Trump, even though he's always been kind of iffy on pro-life issues, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
Just kinda
he's
does whatever.
he's utilitarian and populist when it comes to that. Like, let's be real. And that's Donald Trump's whole MO. So it wouldn't be for me. It's always like a principled argument. And I think that's why I get to where I'm stumbling over my words. And I'm very much I've always been disappointed that we never came to a really good agreement. Like that Roe v. Wade did not answer the question that was put before it, and that we could come to an uncomfortable agreement as a society as to when life does actually begin. Right? We don't have to be right, but if we have an agreement that sets aside a lot of the constant issue preservation and the constant argument from the religious, right and the very liberal left. And so I think that there should have been a middle ground long before this and in an uncomfortable agreement on the notion.
I don't think
So
we're gonna get to that point. Like, there's people who have principal differences here, right? Like,
sure.
and like
Yeah,
even
that's
within like
fair.
the Libertarian Party, we have principal differences. There are folks who are like, nope, that's a human life. So it doesn't matter at what stage you abort that baby. If that's a human life, that's murder. And the consistent position, if you take that, is, well, all abortion should be banned. And there are other folks within the party who emphasize the bodily autonomy of the mother and say, no, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be required to carry a baby to term because that is your choice. And like, clearly is not a human life yet.
Right.
And those maybe a certain, and then the middle ground debate ends up being like, well, it probably becomes a human life at some point in time, but like I don't know like when that is, right?
Right.
And even stuff like, so it ranges from that opinion, like, oh, maybe it becomes a human life that's worth protecting at 16 weeks or 25 weeks when, like they can take care of preemies, or then do you do a blanket ban on third trimester abortions, even in the case of protecting the mother, right? Like it because there
Right.
are some cases where that happens. And I thought, actually, weirdly enough, one of Pete Buttigieg's like best answers was like, hey, anyone getting an abortion in the third trimester, they're not doing it because like they're having an elective abortion. Like they've carried that baby all the way to term. Like that person is expecting to take home a baby. If they have an abortion that late in the pregnancy, it's because something went horribly wrong. And like we should not make that medical decision or medical necessity illegal. And you get all sorts of strange rulings with that, like in Texas, where people can't get it's not an abort. I forget what the medical term is called, but people who have a pregnancy where the baby is no longer alive, like that, like the baby is dead, they can't remove that like dead fetus from the mother because like the abortion laws in Texas make it impossible to do so. That no one will perform that procedure because they think that they will be prosecuted for performing a late term abortion. So
Yeah. Yeah. There's always that problem of an over legislated society that I don't think anybody in their right mind wants a mom who's lost a baby to be in jeopardy of getting prosecuted for having that baby removed from her body. Like nobody in their right mind wants to do that. I guess I have to agree that Pete Buttigieg gave a pretty nuanced answer there. Um, there is still that thought of, oh my God, last minute we have a viable child on the way, and an abortion gets put into place. I think that people are repulsed by that notion.
yeah,
So,
like yeah,
and
like
I get it.
hypothetically could happen, right?
Right.
Like, and but it's you end up with these strange situations where medical decisions need to happen fast.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what it is. Again, like I'm in this. Like I'm having, my wife's having a baby in a week. It's
Oh
it's
my
one of
God.
those
Is it
things.
next week?
Yeah, no, it's on Tuesday. I'm having boy number 2. So yeah, radio show. I'm gonna be out next week.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, we're not doing the show next week. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations, Kevin. You've got to do your part to maintain the reproductive birth rate of families in America. So I appreciate your effort here.
So it's still slightly below replacement rate, technically,
Yeah, you need to be what, like 2.3, 2.4?
2.1. I need to have 1/10 of a baby.
All right. Well, I'm not going to recommend that, but I would say to impose your will on society, have like 4 or 5 kids, right? And then you're guaranteed like to live forever on some level. Well,
there we go.
statistically.
Yeah,
statistically, it becomes more likely that your genes survive.
just have a whole bunch of kids and build my own voting block. And
Yeah, that's how the Irish did it. I mean, we've talked about that.
yeah, right. I see. I don't know that my wife is up for that, but I'll pitch that to her, see what she thinks. I don't know that I
Yeah.
can afford the daycare either. It's rough out there, Tim.
Don't worry about that. Money takes care of itself. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, let's get to a couple of these comments. We have a couple minutes left, but Real Mav1 says, that's just more BS. If the baby is dead, it's dead. No murder involved. Yeah, I mean, that's
yeah.
the thing is like that makes sense, but like doctors were and their lawyers were correctly worried that they might get prosecuted for some overzealous law enforcers thinking that that's an abortion. And I know
certainly the law that we're talking about was worded that way. Like, certainly that's reality. I remember reading it. It was like it tried to be a very clear-cut, straightforward law. Therefore, it created an unnuanced problem with enforcement.
Yeah. And saying this person, Real Mav on YouTube, says a baby that's alive is a human being. Simple. Yeah, I mean it's simple to you. Again, I'm trying to make room for other points of view. I'm generally pro-choice, but I understand where other folks are coming from. I understand the logical consistency of this stuff. I get it. I'm just trying to lay out the facts here best we can. And Shelley jumped in with abortion was never legal in our country. RVW, which is Roe versus Wade, allowed abortion on demand. I was supposed to be aborted by a doctor's orders that my mother refused to follow, and her body took a toll. I mean, it should always be your mother's choice in that situation. It's she chose to have you, and that's great.
I'm glad she did.
Yeah, glad you did. She did, but abortion was sort of illegal in some places. Like they timed it by like the quickening. And then you couldn't like terminate a pregnancy after that. Although it took place with a lot more like home medicine type of stuff. It was more like that. People would just take like herbs that would be likely to end the pregnancy.
Correct.
And so it was a bit messier before that. There's some states who banned it completely, and others, who allowed it for quite a bit. Roe v. Wade was kind of a weird, cobbled together compromise position that used justifications from like the 14th Amendment to try to create a right of abortion. So it was always kind of a messy structure that was bound to fall apart.
I mean, I read Roe v. Wade a couple of times, and I'm like, this. First of all, it didn't answer the issue. It was like a politically motivated answer to a really tough question. So I was always thought it would get struck down. I thought it should have never been kind of breathed into existence in the form that it was. That doesn't mean that I'm, pro forced birth. That doesn't mean that I'm anti-abortion. I think that there's, I think you said it pretty well. There's room for nuanced positions. I do have a question, Kevin, and I want the audience to think
Tim,
about this.
You're going to have to save the question for next segment because we're over time. All right. Thanks again for joining us on A Free Solution, folks. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
I do think we should ask the question of the WSL audience too, but just to preface it, it would be kind of like, are we fighting over things like right now when we circle back around to the abortion debate and circle back around to the immigration debate, though there is kind of a real lot of immigration going on that is incentivized. So I think, but are we arguing over things because our economic reality is not as rosy as they are presenting it? Like, I feel like a lot of issues get recycled, and what makes them easily recyclable is the fact that everybody's feeling economic pressure. What do you think about that?
What if it's the opposite? What if the economy's so good we have extra time to spend on debating stuff?
Damn. All right. See? Actually, I'll have to give that some consideration because I like that counterpoint.
So like that's an argument made for like environmentalism a lot of times. Like countries where everyone is starving to death and trying to heat their home, do not care about environmentalism because they're
No,
just trying to survive.
sure.
Environmentalism is a luxury good, and debate about other policy issues is in some way a luxury good. Not that immigration isn't important and abortion isn't important. It's just people are more likely to be invested in those debates, both from a personal point of view and to spend their time and money on getting their desired policy positions enacted because
Yeah.
they have the extra resources to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a fantastic point in that poverty is, in fact, incredibly bad for the environment. That people in desperation are. I mean, you're going to burn cow poop. You know what I mean? Like we use it to grow food. We use it to revitalize the soil. But if you need heat, you're going to burn something at hand, and therefore you make a great point. You do not have time to think about the environment.
Yeah.
Um, the argument that free trade lifts, rising tide lifts all boats. Free trade is something that will make everyone richer, and then it is a luxury, commodity. Caring about the environment.
That kind of is the whole Kuznets curve idea around it. Basically, like like you at a certain point, like you go from like no carbon emissions because like you have a society that's doing nothing to rising carbon emissions because like a society is building up and everyone's just trying to like struggle to the point of survival, and then it decreases because. And you can apply this to any environmental impact because like you now have the resources to care about the space you live in because you have more than you need to survive.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Hey, put up real Mavs comment. I kind of went through something similar. I was a little bit older than a teenager.
So we'll read the comment. You
Yeah.
want to read it?
Yeah, I would. I fathered my oldest daughter as a teen. Was I ready for the responsibility? Absolutely not. But she was born and survived to be a mother and a grandmother. And congratulations, man. I get it. Like,
It's awesome.
certainly there's a sanctity of life that gets lost in the abortion discussion that as a quasi-religious individual, though I profess no affiliation with an organized religion, but I do believe in the sanctity of human life, and human beings are important to me. So I get it, man. And you made sacrifices, and you cut deals, and you worked hard, and who knows? Maybe you ran into bad court decisions, and maybe you felt like a second-class citizen, like I know a lot of dudes do. So I don't know. Like I get it, man. And thank you, right? Like because that's the real sacrifice. That's what keeps society going. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it worked out. And again, it's one of those things where that's a great choice too.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you have that family and that legacy.
Absolutely.
And all right, so we should probably go back to the actual show. We'll wrap
We
up with some Wendy stuff and some California news.
All right, let's do it.
Doing like national stuff today. All right, we'll go back in 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and I just want to give a big shout out to President Joe Biden for handily winning the Michigan primary. I know I threw you a curveball, Kevin, but you weren't ready for it. But congratulations. Congratulations to that guy. He knocked it out of the park. He was running against uncommitted and like 2 other people. And bro, he got like 81% of the vote, despite the fact that people do not appreciate his handling of the war in Gaza.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest reason, at least among Democrats, is
that like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was pretty much denied access to the Democratic Party, perhaps is a contributing factor. It would have been awesome if he had been beaten by unconfirmed or uncommitted, which we could call none of the above. And I just wanted to get everybody out there.
I saw a bunch of like news stories like, oh, he lost to uncommitted. I'm like, no, he didn't. Like,
no, he did not.
In like some towns, it was like close, like closer than
I
this
love those
anyway.
Towns. Yeah,
like Dearborn, I think was like one of those towns, but
oh really?
Yeah, but no, he didn't lose. And it's something that happened before, like Barack Obama also, he got like 90% or something. it's something that has happened a couple
Yeah.
times, and honestly, like it does go back to there's a good chunk of both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party who are frustrated with their current nominees and lashing out for any option to find an alternative.
Yeah, I mean, our eye in the sky and our feet on the ground put it very succinctly today in Messenger that I don't know, something like 80% of the population is convinced that we are like both of our candidates are way too old and we cannot believe what's going on. It was funnier the way she put it. And I'm sorry with my slow computer setup, I can't access the comment, but it was great. Thank you, Patricia, out there in YouTube and Facebook land, offering us great information all the time.
Yeah. No,
So, Kevin, we should talk about your hero, libertarian hero, Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. Oh goodness.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any stretch of the word where we can say libertarian hero, unlike another famous Biden. We can at least make a joke about that, but Elizabeth Warren is the bane of the libertarians' entire worldview, and she is here from the government, and she's here to help. What is she helping with today, Tim? She's helping with possible Wendy's surge pricing, and I say possible Wendy's surge pricing because we'll talk about how it's not actually. I think most people are misunderstanding it, but I'll read her tweet. She said, "At Wendy's is planning to try out quote surge pricing. That means you could pay more for your lunch, even if the cost of Wendy's stays exactly the same. It's price gouging, plain and simple, and American families have had enough." She wants to do something about this, Tim. She wants to make sure that Wendy's can't ever change their pricing. And who knows? I'm expecting a federal solution to Wendy's changing their pricing sometime soon, because she was also involved in like sandwich monopoly stuff, right? Like she had also like butted into the Subway Jimmy John's thing.
She was big on that, protecting the consumer for their voracious appetite for high carbohydrate food.
The sandwich monopoly. She had to stop that. Now the next thing she's going to save us from is Wendy's being able to change their pricing on the fly.
Look, surge pricing is a thing. It's already happening. It happens particularly in restaurants that are doing brisk takeout orders through those Grubhub and DoorDash, right? Where they raise their prices. If you're trying to order something at 7:00 from your favorite pizza place, you may in fact be paying $2 or $3 more for a pizza pie than you would be paying if you ordered it at 3:00. That's an absolute reality. It puts hundreds and thousands of dollars in their pockets. It's actually not such a bad thing. And you can time your purchases to avoid that if you want to, or you can go right to the store and avoid the added expense of, DoorDash.
You could do that. Sometimes those services, they charge a bit more during peak times, and they're doing the delivery services are doing it when they impose it for the same reason that Uber does, because the people who are working for them are not employees. They cannot command them to work at any given time. So they offer an extra incentive for them to get out and meet the demand that exists. So the same way Uber does this, where they say, hey, there's a bunch of folks in this area that need rides. You will make some extra money if you go to this area and provide people with rides. Turn on your phone, your apps, get in your car, and go provide this service.
Yeah, they're doing God's work, these price gougers. Okay, like they're literally out there meeting market demand, and that's the beauty of a free market, right? You don't look, guys, you don't ever have to eat Wendy's, right? Much less go to Wendy's at a time when it wants to charge you 10 cents more for a cheeseburger. Which Wendy's, by the way, guys, emphatically denies Elizabeth Warren's accusation that they say they just put up menu boards that they can change the prices on.
Yeah, I was about to say, they say it's fake news. They're like, they had mentioned during an earnings call, they talked about the idea of dynamic pricing. And all they really mean by that is that the way they do pricing now is they're sliding out manufactured pricing things that have to be made and shipped to the store.
Right.
And so now they're like, hey, we're going to set it up so that you're basically going to have big TVs there like every other fast food chain already has, and that we're going to allow the franchise owners to run specials. So in the same way, like a happy hour is dynamic pricing, right? You get $1 off pints of beer. That's dynamic pricing. It's a time-based thing. We say, oh, you come between 5 and 7, you get $1 off a beer, right?
Yeah. Or let's
And
say you want to sell meth laced pretzels, right? And to get them like all the way into society, you start them at a really, really, really low price. And then if your menu board can change instantaneously, it's perfect. You've got the hook, and you're off to the races making money.
yeah,
Maybe that's not the best
yeah,
way to
like
go about it.
Tim,
I
this
don't
went
know.
in an aggressively libertarian direction.
We got to get the creds out there, Kevin. We got to let people know.
No, but like it's restaurants should be able to do this, right? If one like Wendy's restaurant decides that they want to run a special on Frosties between like 2 p.m. and 5 p.m., they should be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like that is their prerogative. They can change the pricing. They can do what they want. If Wendy's wants to allow the owners to do that, to raise prices on certain items and lower prices on others at whim, they should be able to do that. And if they change prices a bunch and it makes you mad, just don't go there. Just don't show up to Wendy's. Like that's all you got to do, because they'll change their behavior. If customers find it annoying, they'll just say, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore because customers don't like the instability, or blame it on something else. But like,
So
if they're
look,
smart, they would just
yeah, I have a
change
little
their
story.
practices.
Like one of my, I successfully lost. I went on a weight loss binge about back like last August, and I managed to lose roughly 32 pounds, which I feel like amazed at myself with the amount of
It's
willpower.
not bad.
Yeah, one of the things that I had to do was avoid the surge pricing at Wendy's and McDonald's. Like by simply always avoiding places like Wendy's and McDonald's. Now, does that mean I cut Taco Bell out of my meal plan? No, because Taco Bell is actually low in carbohydrates and offers a lot of roughage. So you can work in some Taco Bell even if you're trying to lose weight. But those loafy bread stuff, you got to stay away from that. So
That's the
there's
key.
another way to avoid their surge pricings. And I
You
swear to
just
God,
not
if
eat
Taco
there.
Bell goes to surge pricing, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah, dynamic like pricing. You're going to be able to get the beef chalupa at like $3 at between 2 and 5, and then at $10 between like 11 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Yeah,
Man, in high school they would have got me, because that was like my favorite time to go to Taco Bell, is like midnight.
imagine that.
So yeah, they could have got us. We would have been in line hungry, and like, all the boys are packed into the car, and we're like, yeah, we're getting Taco Bell, and they could have been like, yeah, those are like $10 each, and we'd be like, okay, I guess that's our paychecks for the week. Cool.
Yeah. No, you would have made that deal. Taco Bell wins on that, on so many levels when it comes to that. There's a compulsion or a like craving for it. It works, and basically, like I said, I still manage to lose weight while eating Taco Bell at least once a week. So, and I don't think I could have done that if I had eaten at McDonald's or Wendy's.
Yeah, honestly, all things in moderation. Like that's the key, right? Like you can eat a McDonald's hamburger like once a week. If you're eating it like Morgan Spurlock allegedly was in Super Size Me, yeah, it's gonna be bad for you. Everyone knows that.
Do you remember like what the horror? Yeah, the horror of Morgan Spurlock gaining like 100 pounds from eating McDonald's every day. But then when you hear the real story, it was like every time they say, well, do you want that supersized? He said, yes. I mean, he literally made a glutton out of himself and injured himself. Dude.
He did. Well, no, some of it was fake too. Like he wasn't really following it. He was just, he put together like a not very accurate documentary. And, at the end of the day though, too, like the concept is ridiculous. Like no one, not even like, I would say not no one, but almost no one is eating McDonald's literally every day.
No,
there's some super users who might, but like that's not a thing. Like you know that's bad for you. Like, yeah, all things in moderation. You have a McDonald's hamburger every once in a while, it's not going to kill you. You have like 5 of them a day, of course it's going to be bad for you. Like that's common sense. You should know that. Like it's not good for you.
Yeah, I mean that is common sense, isn't it? It's supposed to be a treat. You shouldn't be going there 3 times a day. There's obviously a lot of calories there. They're obviously using chemicals to make the food last longer.
We have some negativity about Taco Bell and McDonald's in the comments.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Real Mav and Alice are not fans of those.
I don't blame them for not liking McDonald's and Wendy's, but Taco Bell, my
So I'll say
precious
this:
Taco Bell.
I will mildly defend McDonald's in that, like, I know what I'm getting. It's not great, but you know what? It's usually pretty consistent. It's
It's
fine in a pinch
incredibly
and like
consistent.
occasionally. Like,
Yeah.
you should not eat every day. Like the thought of eating, like, I've had like McDonald's like twice in a row and regretted it. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that
Nope.
stunk. Like I've been on like road trips and like, no, I hate that. That's once is fine.
Yeah. So look, one of the ways that these restaurants can save money, Kevin, is by, in fact, purchasing politicians and exemptions from minimum wage laws. They they
Great
could,
strategy. Great
yeah.
strategy, Tim.
Just saying, there's ways around this.
You should be like a national consultant on this stuff.
Yeah.
California, they increased their minimum wage to $20 an hour. Governor Gavin Newsom promoting that, but they did make one very specific and perhaps a little odd exception to that rule, which is that if you're a fast food chain that serves fresh bread. So coincidentally, one of Gavin Newsom's largest donors happens to be a franchise owner of several Panera Breads.
I mean, can you imagine that?
Imagine that. Like,
Can you imagine
I'm
that?
not saying they're definitely related. I'm just saying it's an interesting coincidence.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's definitely related, though. Like you can occupy your space, but I'm telling you, it's totally related. But you knew that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
Now it's like, how do you? I haven't seen any fallout from this, but like, how do you possibly justify like making that very specific exemption? Like, oh, like yeah, like just like fast food restaurants that serve fresh bread. Like, why? If you're gonna make like a workers need a living wage argument, what possible reason could you have for like, oh, but not these ones, not this group of people?
The fresh bread people. Yeah, I mean, uh, it should boggle the mind. It probably boggles the mind of the WYSL listeners. I'm sure it's boggling the mind of the people that join us on the internet. But how do people continue to support Gavin Newsom and the elected political elite when it's so obvious that they're corrupt? How do they fall back and still say, well, he did it so that he could raise money for his presidential campaign, and that's who we need in the White House? Like, could that be the argument, Kevin? Could that be the
My goodness,
mental leap that they make? Arguably,
maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. Like Gavin Newsom being like the alternative to Joe Biden is ridiculously that again, like it's the stuff like this, the stuff where like his buddy, he pushes for this exemption for his buddy, allegedly, it seems to be a connection there. And, in addition to all of his goofy stuff during COVID and whatnot, other than like him changing his mind on nuclear power, like the dude is terrible, but luckily most other folks are changing their mind on that too. So he doesn't get that much credit.
Yeah.
No, so I don't know. It's an odd thing to me. And I don't know. I don't know how you not you, but how anyone like lets folks get away with this. Just run them out of office.
But that's the issue. No one gets run out of office. Congressional approval rating is in the toilet. It's at the lowest rates in history. And yet there's still this 91, 92% reelection rate. Like, incumbents get reelected. Mitch McConnell got reelected for 50 years. Like, he was a bad guy. He was a political expedient.
Gotta hold him accountable. All right.
Yeah.
But sure. Tim, on that note though, we gotta head out. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Have a great night, WYSL folks. Take care. All right. Man, a lot of folks negative about fast food places in here.
I grow more negative about them as I get older. Taco Bell's the only one that I really go to. Sometimes when my kid wants to go to McDonald's, and I'm literally at the point where I will buy him something to eat from McDonald's, but I will not buy myself anything. I just do not like the way that their food tastes. And it may be an aging thing. It may be it
That's
doesn't
fine. I
fit.
mean, like personal opinion and sometimes like I said that like food's mostly pretty consistent at those places. Sometimes though it's garbage, right? Like like there's always like you might know one in like your town or next town over, like some fast food restaurant isn't meeting the brand consistency, and like
Yeah.
they're that's how it goes. And again, I worked in a McDonald's for a little bit. I've seen what it looks like. It was okay, right? Like most of the stuff it's fine.
Sure. I mean, it's clean, right? Basically.
Yeah, no, this one was fairly clean.
Yeah.
It's good.
They have a
And
system to keep their food clean. They have a system of checking to make sure that the food is not
it's
contaminated. Those things are okay.
it's all like it's all very like scripted. They're like you have like a photo. At the time, it was like a series of photos that would show you exactly what to do for each step in the process. Okay, here's the little thing that you follow to put the patties in a certain placement on the grill thing, and it had a little weird little press that went down, and then it made like a tone, like a little like a little jingle actually when it was about to pull up, and then you had to pull them off within a certain number of seconds and assemble and put them in the warmer and then assemble them. It's like a whole thing,
Yeah.
right? So it's like
Yeah,
a factory process for fast food. I've gotten it very efficient.
No, that makes sense to me. Even I was into fine dining when I was younger. Like I managed a restaurant. I used to wait on tables. I used to bartend. And even there, one of our goals, Kevin, because we were in a somewhat touristy area, were able to command a higher rate of, for our food. But one of the things we were determined to provide the customer was if our prime rib this Friday tastes exactly like our prime rib next Friday, then people who like our prime rib are coming back and they're bringing
Yeah.
other people. So
That
that
consistency
consistency is key. It's
Yeah.
absolutely key.
100%. Yeah, you don't want to go to a place. Okay, am I going to have good prime rib today or terrible prime rib today? Because they might not want to take that chance. Like
Yeah.
you want to hope that like the good chef is on to get your food cooked right.
That is we would boil it down just it wasn't quite to pictures, right? But it wanted to be chef independent of talent, right? Like
Right.
it just a person that can go in there and follow these rules and get this product to the table. Like the prime rib goes in at exactly 10 o'clock, right? And the oven is set at exactly 225, and it is not ready until 3:45. There's no art to it. And guys, I may be misremembering, right? But it was,
Right.
4 ounces
Good
of
point. It's
pepper, 3 ounces of salt, like a hand rub with garlic afterwards. It was like the instructions were boiled down to that, and that was
Yeah.
it, And if
Yeah, you follow the exact thing, or
yeah,
it's
and
going to
if the
taste
prep
different.
right, and if my job as a manager was to be like, "Hey, what did your prep cook do differently this morning that this prime rib is not the same as last Friday's?" You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
literally get to the bottom of it. And sometimes we had to, make adjustments.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what it is, though. But again,
yeah.
that's part of running a good business. And what else do out there? You go to hometown restaurants.
Do it.
Great.
Yeah,
Again,
do it.
You should.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also I'm very grateful for things like Yelp and Google reviews too, where
Yeah.
like, because it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this, especially now that I have like a toddler. I'm less willing to take a risk on most restaurants, right? Like, so I get why a lot of people will just go to the chain restaurants because like they know what they're getting is probably going to be fairly consistent, right?
Sure.
So especially if a family with young kids who might be picky, they're likely to say, like, my family did this. We'll just be you know what? I know my son's going to eat Chipotle, so we're going to go to Chipotle, right?
Right.
It's like
he'll
his
eat
favorite
chicken
food.
tender or chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Like,
he
will.
But it's like, okay, I'm going to go to this one restaurant and all the meals are over $15 and there's no kids items. Like, am I going to take my son to that? No. But or even like if I'm on a road, but like I might be willing to do that if I have a good review, if I see a good review and there's that stuff out there. And
Right.
it's going to be a good place for either me and my wife or, my whole family. I'm glad that now a system exists because I'm more willing to be adventurous if I can kind of get an idea of what I'm getting rather than just like, hey, let's roll the dice on this diner that we just happen to be passing. Which I might do on my own, but I'm not willing to do most of the times with like my kid with me.
Yeah. And that's a science for fast food. Like they get it. There's a comment by Patty. Had a friend look at areas where there are a lot of fast food joints and buy stock in the local medical industry and drug companies. I do think that there is a current knowledge base that's growing, that there is some interconnection between what pharma wants and what's being offered in our food system, right? Like, and then if we take a look at the food pyramid and we take a look at the knowledge that has been offered as science, what's that?
Yeah, a plate now. I thought it was a plate still.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's not a pyramid anymore. The food pyramid's been gone for like a decade.
I know, but it was a major impact in our lives, right? Like even your life, like that.
That was fair. I learned that I should mostly be eating pasta. That's how I interpreted the food pyramid.
Yeah, or bread and pretzels, all that stuff's really good for you. Like just eat that and you're going to be great. And it turns out that that was inaccurate information, that the standard American diet from the 70s was not good for you, right? So here we are with it like an epidemic of obesity. And not so much that it was planned, but are they just that incompetent,
Yeah. No, it's like, because some of it is incompetence. Some of it like really was like corruption, right? Like there's some stuff where like the federal government probably overemphasized dairy consumption. Like it's not that there's anything wrong with dairy consumption, but they overemphasize it, because of lobbyists. They may have overemphasized like, sugar consumption, and kind of hid or at least like glossed over some of like the dangers of excess sugar consumption, in addition to things like substituting fat with sugar or substituting sugar with corn syrup, right? It's
right.
There's kind of different ways in which our the food that's available in your average grocery store got manipulated. Now we have a lot more choices today. It's a bit easier to go and find choices to eat healthier. It's just the government isn't necessarily always consistent in their recommendations. They're not always, I also want to say, I guess like not honest, but like sometimes they're influenced too heavily by certain lobbying groups.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And I mean, I'll probably overstate it, but you're not understating it. There is a distinct connection between people who have money and the laws that get written and the things that they pass off as science, right? Like fat in and of itself is not bad for you, but fat combined with lots of sugar in your diet is going to ruin you. It's literally going to ruin you, So what's cut out sugar or cut out fat? I think you're better off cutting out sugar because, and it's weird, right? Because as part of my weight loss challenge, I really took a look at how much sugar I was consuming, and man,
I mean, there's stuff like, okay, like we're gonna cut fat out of like yogurt or something, right? And then you end up with 30 grams of sugar in a little cup of yogurt,
right?
Because like turns out like fat makes stuff taste awesome, and when you remove the fat, it doesn't taste great. So you substitute something else to make it taste good. And that happened like a lot of dairy products like yogurt and milk and other things too. It's just fat tastes good, and people go back and forth on that too. Like, oh, is full fat Greek yogurt like bad for cholesterol? Well, maybe, I don't know, but maybe it's like fine if you do that. Eat it in moderation because it's heavy in fat and protein. That's what I eat many mornings.
I can say again, being that I'm going to turn myself into a weight loss guru. That in the last 6 months, my AC1 test improved dramatically. My triglycerides improved dramatically. And one of the things that I focused on, my LDL cholesterol, all of those numbers improved dramatically. And it was because I minimized sugar in my diet and I maximized natural protein, which is a good fit for me anyway. That may not be the fit for everyone, but there are ways to modify your health through diet. I didn't do an extraordinary amount of extra exercise because I'm very physically active every day anyway. So,
well, I mean, it's honestly, it's kind of a mistake to do that. Like, my my wife had lost a bunch of weight, and she had started running before that, and I've been in periods of my life where I've been running actively, but
Sure.
like a lot of times if you start exercising a lot, you just get more hungry and you don't lose weight because your body's just trying to like catch up
No, I
on
get
and all
that.
that
Yeah, I
stuff.
could see that.
So yeah, you just have to like eat well, and that's an important part of it. And good doctors will tell you that too.
Yeah.
That's something you do, and good
Yeah.
stuff. Fresh eggs and ghee, it's good. Well, that sounds
Yeah.
terrible for you, but fry
I don't think
fresh
it
eggs and
is.
ghee with home raised ham, bacon, and sausage. I feel like ghee is not good for you, but I really do like ghee. And a lot of times I'll eat fresh eggs with ghee is a good one, but a lot of times I'll just fry it in like oil and do like a fried egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do my eggs in butter when and I don't really like eggs, so that's not one of my go-tos for a high protein diet. I basically just cook a lot of meat, and I will bring just meat for lunch and chocolate bars. That's the
Chocolate
other one.
bars. Okay,
Like
yeah, Tim, you lost me there. You
you
lost me
gotta
there.
have. Well, they have a little bit of caffeine in them, and if you
Yeah,
get the dark chocolate, um, it has a little. I feel as though, or I've experienced that it has like an anti-inflammatory property. In other words,
yeah,
like let's say your back is aching because you're kind of swelling up around the joints. You eat a little bit of chocolate, it minimizes the backache. Like I'm
yeah,
not talking
maybe.
about serious backaches that need health treatment. I'm talking about all right, my back is whooped and I'm feeling like a little sciatica coming on, and you're like eat some chocolate with lunch, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, that's not so bad. I can get through the last 2 hours of the day, 3 hours of the day. I did eat a whole bunch of raw honey. My mom bought me some literal raw honey. Check this out. It was wild, Kevin, because it was filled with wax and I don't know, like it was chunky. You know what I mean? And I'm just like eating it out of the thing.
So, honey
And
that was just like scooped out of a hive somewhere.
yeah, and it was A, delicious, and B, I don't know. I don't know that it had any real positive effects on my health, but it certainly didn't hurt my health. It was
Yeah.
pre my latest labs, and my latest labs, like I said, came back good. I did do some
All things in
supplement.
moderation. Honey's still
Yeah,
sugar, but
yeah, right. Yeah, but I did some and I like sugar. I like sweet things. So I did do some supplementing, right? I did try to take vitamin D regularly and I tried to like take a little bit of magnesium pretty regularly and I did buy a B12 vitamin. I don't know if any of those things impacted anything. I think the biggest thing was cutting back on sugar and eating more protein. That's my sense of it.
that's probably a good thing. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of how my wife lost weight too. It's like, all right, we say a bunch of chicken,
Yeah.
fills you
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
instead of like eating 3 bowls of pasta, like we eat like a smaller amount of chicken, you know.
Yeah. I basically I was a big pasta guy too, right? Like I
Yeah.
loved pasta. So I'd make spaghetti and meatballs. Now it's like, all right, I'll put 4 meatballs on my plate and a little bit of pasta. Whereas before it
Yeah.
was like I would have a big, huge plate of pasta and 2 meatballs. And
Yeah.
arguably the balance seems to be
Right, you
working
just
for me.
need to add a bit more because I did that with, like, rice and beans today. It's like, normally, I just, like, eat rice and beans and vegetables and stuff, and I'd eat a ton of it, then I'm eating a ton of rice, and instead of, like, "No, I'm gonna add a bunch of ground beef to this," and now I eat, like, 1 small bowl, and I'm good,
Hmm.
and then I'll, put it over lettuce or something and eat that, and I fill up with
I
it
mean, I
instead
get
of
all my
eating, like
best health advice from the Joe Rogan podcast. So
there you go. I mean, like,
yeah,
yeah, we're sounding like that podcast now, and
a
and,
little
like,
bit.
we're
Yeah.
not even getting sponsored for any cool supplements or
I
anything, like, so
know,
I think
guys.
we
Like
just
yeah, but there there are scientists on there occasionally, and they do a lot of scientists on the Joe Rogan show. So that's very specific subset of scientists do recommend high protein diets, right? High natural protein diets. So it was working. So I didn't move away from it. Tried keto and I just went hard into keto. And I'm just like, well, what do I like about keto? And that's like, I like chicken. So on Sunday, I make like 37 chicken drumsticks, and that's my lunch for, 4 days.
I was about to say 37 chicken drumsticks for
No,
one
I don't know.
lunch. Like that's aggressive.
No, 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 no. It's like
No,
dinner that night and like three
right.
lunches,
There you go.
maybe
That's
2 lunches. I mean, I can eat a lot, guys. Like, don't get me wrong. I did not. That's the nice thing about getting away from sugar is that you can counter your hunger pains with food, right? Like, hey, I'm hungry. I can eat some food. You eat protein. All of a sudden, you're less hungry, and
yeah.
and you still have some energy being generated from the fat and the protein. So, and sugar is, I think sugar's the devil, Kevin. That's what I want to
It's
say.
the devil.
Yeah,
Sugar's
it's bad.
it's all things in moderation.
Not sugar. Like zero sugar is moderation because even protein has natural sugar in it, right?
Yeah. So you're eating sugar there too. You're eating sugar in a bunch of stuff. It's you
Yeah.
could eat like beets or something that has sugar in it too. But like
Yeah, and I would.
but so you're probably not going to get fat eating a bunch of bananas or something. But like if you're eating a bunch of
You're
processed
just
sugar, it's
eating
easier to.
bananas, right?
Well, yeah, maybe if you're just eating bananas, you're gonna have a bunch of problems if you do that. If you go all Morgan Spurlock on bananas, like you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, let's call it a night.
All right, brother.
We
We got sideways on the diet guru thing.
we sure did.
Yeah. So
All right.
I'm looking for next week, though. I guess not next week, but I do have a product in development
All right.
that I want to share on the show.
Well, it's gonna have to wait a couple weeks unless you get a sub. I won't hold it
All right.
against you if you get a sub, Tim.
Okay, maybe I'll try to get a sub and hawk my wares.
There you go.
As they
All
say.
right. Well, have a great night, folks. Take care.